The way we live today depends entirely on where we live. If you're in a bustling metropolis, your life probably looks very different from someone who lives in a rural village. And whether you're aware of it or not, the reason for this difference is most likely tied to access to certain natural resources like water, energy, and raw materials for construction. With cities accounting for about 70% of global energy consumption and 50% of material use, finding ways to make them more efficient could be key to our survival. So what if we flip the script? Could we create cities that don't depend on being in a particular place or having unique access to natural resources? This is SCI Show, and we're answering the extraordinary question: do we have what it takes to make a city that doesn't depend on natural resources? If you think about it, it's pretty amazing that so many cities around the world weren't built with the goal of complete self-sufficiency. For example, San Francisco relies on a steady supply of lumber that comes from Northern California forests. Singapore needs lots of iron for steel buildings since it sits on top of soft, sandy soil. And Tokyo depends on coal, oil, and nuclear power because it's a densely populated island with limited space for renewable energy infrastructure. But as time goes on, we'll need to change the way we build cities if we want them to continue growing and developing. One of the biggest issues is overpopulation. In 2008, there were roughly 50 megacities, places with populations over 10 million people. Today, there are 46 more than 10 million person cities than there were 30 years ago. And by 2050, the number will grow to 43, and that means a lot more demand for the things cities need to function. One projection estimates that by 2050, global urban populations will consume 56% more cement, 63% more steel, 44% more aluminum, and 70% more glass. But beyond just having more people to take care of, we also have to consider that megacities are often home to some of the most vulnerable people in the world. These are the folks who may not have reliable access to safe drinking water, food, or healthcare. So making cities more resilient and independent is not only an environmental issue, but a social one too. So let's talk about what a city that doesn't depend on natural resources would actually look like. Well, the first thing it would need is a renewable source of energy. In a perfect world, we could cover every square inch of land with solar panels and wind turbines. But we know that's impossible. So instead, we can try to develop better technology that packs a bigger punch in a smaller space. One solution is to use thinner, lighter materials to create more flexible, semi-transparent solar cells that can be added to windows, walls, and even clothing. Of course, it's not enough to just generate electricity. You need somewhere to store it too. And at the moment, the best option for large-scale storage is still batteries. If we can make those cheaper and more efficient, then it would free up more space for other uses and reduce demands on the grid. Similarly, by upgrading smart grids and using real-time data, we could more efficiently distribute energy throughout the city without losing too much in the process. As for water, one study found that if everyone in the world used water as efficiently as the average person in Singapore, we could stretch our supply another 25-fold. So part of the solution here might be in education and encouraging people to save water wherever they can. But we'll also need new technologies to remove salt from seawater and desalinate brackish groundwater. And then we can use treated wastewater for non-potable purposes like watering the grass or adding to rivers to supplement their flow. And finally, there's the matter of building materials. Now, if we could find ways to make concrete and steel production more environmentally friendly, then we could continue using these tried and true methods. But we should also try to incorporate more natural materials into the mix. Bamboo is a fast-growing grass that has incredible tensile strength and can be turned into lumber or woven into textiles. Straw and timber can be combined with lime to create a strong building block known as compressed earth block. And there are companies out there turning trash like plastic and glass into bricks. Putting all these pieces together, you get a city that operates as its own self-sustaining ecosystem. It generates and stores its own energy. It cleans and recycles its own water. And it builds and maintains itself with minimal waste. The catch: this ideal city doesn't exist yet. at least not anywhere close to being completely self-sufficient. Today, the closest thing we have to a low-resource city is Masdar City in the United Arab Emirates. Built on a plot of reclaimed desert land, this experimental eco-city is powered entirely by renewable energy. It has a desalination plant to turn seawater into drinking water and a waste management system that converts sewage into treated water for landscaping. But it's far from perfect. So far, only 20% of the planned 60,000 residents have moved in. The city was built to be car-free, but there are still plenty of cars there. And while it is designed to reuse and recycle everything possible, the concept hasn't been fully realized yet. But Masdar City does provide a roadmap for what could be done if we put our minds to it. According to the UN, transforming cities to be more sustainable and resilient will require a multi-pronged approach. First, we'll need to improve energy efficiency across all sectors and replace fossil fuels with renewables. Then we'll need to rethink how we move people around cities, especially when it comes to freight transport, which accounts for almost half of the emissions from road transport. On top of that, we'll need to focus on water management, reducing industrial pollution, managing solid waste, improving air quality, and mitigating the impacts of the heat island effect, which happens when cities become significantly warmer than surrounding rural areas. And while this may sound daunting, there are some encouraging signs. In the last decade, there's been an increase in local and national policies aimed at creating greener cities. Some countries are setting ambitious goals for reducing their carbon footprint. For example, by 2030, Singapore aims to cut 36% of its emissions from 2020 levels. Meanwhile, Copenhagen has set a goal to become carbon neutral by 2025. These targets will require coordinated efforts from governments, businesses, and individuals. But if successful, they could point the way forward for other cities around the world. The thing is, these types of transitions don't happen overnight. There are significant upfront costs associated with changing the way a city operates. And even once those systems are in place, maintaining them requires ongoing financial support. Many developing cities simply don't have the capital to invest in these kinds of changes. And even developed cities often struggle to balance sustainability with economic growth. But in the long run, it may be worth it. Several studies have concluded that green investments in cities can provide an immediate economic return. For example, investing $1 in urban tree cover can yield $4 in benefits through reduced air conditioning costs, lower stormwater runoff, and improved public health. Similarly, investing €1 in public transport can return between 4 and 7 euros in increased productivity and reduced healthcare costs. Even though it will be challenging, we have the knowledge and tools necessary to create resource-independent cities. What we lack is the collective will to implement the changes necessary to make them a reality. According to a report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, we only have a few years left to turn things around before the changes we need to make become impossible. The good news is that we do have the ability to create cities that don't depend on natural resources. Whether we do it now or later could depend on how well we plan for the future.